12 o'clock on your Friday afternoon now. Welcome in to this halftime show. Tyler Head, Terry Ford will be along with me in just a moment. Football Friday, of course, the main concern going on right now revolves around everything going on with the weather. Many of us woke up to a lot of rain, a lot of wind this morning, trees down. I know my complex, there was shingles and shutters, distributed throughout the parking lot. So a lot of nasty weather that's made its way through. Looking right now, though, it looks like everything has, for the most part, cleared up, minus the wind, which is going to hang around for a little bit longer. But I'm looking at this forecast right now, and there is supposed to be some sunshine coming in a little bit later on this afternoon. So it does appear the worst of it has made its way through the Midlands. Certainly still other areas of the state in the southeast being affected. I said earlier, I got a buddy down in Tallahassee that is getting the brunt of it, and they've been hit pretty hard down there. So certainly, reach out to the people that you know in those areas, and certainly keep them in your thoughts and prayers going forward. And hopefully, not too much damage is done. As again, I think for the most part, we got pretty lucky here in the Midlands, and hopefully power can be restored. So shout out to all the linemen and stuff at Dominion Energy and whatnot that are out there working hard today and working to get everything back in order for the weekend ahead. Of course, it is a bye week for South Carolina football. They last practiced on Wednesday, gave the guys a couple days off to enjoy the long weekend, get rested, get rejuvenated, because it is a long college football season, and being able to take a few days off and relax a little bit, go, I don't know, fishing or play some video games or just go back and see family is always good for those guys. Of course, the coach is going to be on the recruiting trail this weekend, out at a lot of high school football games tonight, checking in with a lot of recruits as they try and button up the 2025 draft classes, as Wes, Chris, and myself talked about in the last hour. Not where they wanted to be right now. Currently 32nd overall in the nation and sitting 15th in the SEC per On3's recruiting ranking. So a big weekend to be able to get out there on the recruiting trail and touch base with some of those big recruits to try and wrap up what is hopefully a good 2025 class. And as we've talked about quite a bit this week, it's been a good time to really evaluate where Carolina is in a lot of respects, what they've accomplished so far in the season, and what our expectations in the preseason were compared to where results are as of right now. And look, going back to the summertime, and Terry, you can attest to this too, we thought the pass rush was going to be better. There was a lot of hope for Dylan Stewart. He was obviously turning a lot of heads in the offseason. Kyle Kennard had proven himself at Georgia Tech, but I don't think anybody expected to see the results that we've seen through the first 4 weeks of the regular season that we hope can continue as one of the best pass rushing units in the country right now.
I think you and I, and I'll go pull it off of our skimmer system, both you and I agreed that Kyle Kennard and Dylan Stewart were going to be the best edge pass rushing combo in the country after a month. I think you and I said that, right?
We totally predicted that.
We totally nailed it. No, I mean, look, we thought, let's be real. How many people watch Kyle Kennard play at Georgia Tech? Raise your hand.
Probably very few. Right. I saw them when they played Georgia.
So you saw his stats. You saw, he had 7 sacks last year. Oh, he plays the run solid. Oh, but okay, this guy's going to be a welcome addition. He can improve the pass rush because God knows
it wasn't hard to improve on from last year because it really wasn't there.
Exactly. But no one saw this wrecking ball coming. This guy has affected games like nobody's business, whether it's sacks, pressures, hits. There's been times he's got tackle for loss on running backs to turn it to a 2nd and 13 or a 3rd and 10 or whatever the case. He has been phenomenal in every way, shape, or form. In the locker room, on the field, everything. You couldn't ask for better than what you've gotten out of Kyle Kennard. And Dylan Stewart, look, you always, even as a 5-star high school kid, you always have to take a breath and be patient. You don't know how he's going to translate, especially right away, to the college game in the SEC, right?
Right.
So you can sit there, and I remember watching the spring game, and I went, well, he's got some stuff, but that's against your own offensive linemen, so who knows what that means.
You've been practicing against for a month where you know their ins and outs. We take it with a grain of salt.
Right, so how much is he really going to be able to do this against other teams? Well, we've seen it, but nobody... Even God love Gamecock Larry couldn't have called this, right? This has been, and it's unreal. And we know this, right, Tyler? We know that a good pass rush makes a secondary better.
Of course.
But if you didn't know that or you were uncertain about that, watch what's going on this year. All of a sudden, the secondary, I'm not taking anything away from those guys. they've gotten a lot better than they were last year.
Well, they've gotten a lot better because it's not allowing, these quarterbacks to sit back in the pocket, have all day to throw. And when they are getting the ball off, it's been ill-advised throws that's leading to interceptions. With South Carolina, we know is very good at takeaways in the, Shane Beamer, Clayton White era, and they've done plenty of that this season as well.
Yeah, I mean, all of a sudden, your DBs only have to cover for 2 seconds instead of 7. I mean, you think about stuff like that Florida game. And we can talk about how, the nickel corner and the slot DB or whatever was getting torched. We can talk about that all day. But also, it wasn't like you were getting heavy pressure on Graham Mertz either. And to force either to sack him, hit him, hurry him, force him out of rhythm, like you said, make him a lame duck comes out of his hand. I mean, basically make him Brock Vandagriff.
Sure.
And so a lot of the stuff, even last year, yes, the coverage had to get better. But to be fair, you're asking guys who aren't great cover DBs anyway at this point in their development to cover people for 5-6 seconds. Even the best of the best struggle chasing receivers around for 4, 5, 6 seconds.
Right.
So, when we look at the coverage grades, you watch it with your eyeballs, you see a secondary that's done a much better job hanging with receivers. And part of it is the fact that the pass rush is putting heat. So it's affected everything. I mean, there are times you have to cover, and they have done a better job when they've been asked to be fair.
Right.
But what has also helped is, the quarterback's running for his life, which is always a good thing to see if you're a Carolina fan. So what is, after a month, what's been your biggest surprise after a month?
I guess in a negative way that we're still having concerns about the offensive line. Look, being better than a season ago wasn't a high bar to clear, but I did not expect, especially Casey Henry, to struggle as much as he has this year. I mean, God, you can watch just about any game. He's getting put on his butt quite a few times. And again, when you're talking about those tackle spots, having to contain edge pass rushers, that is such a big key to your offense being effective. And we've seen Sellers, we've seen Ashford. These guys have been under pressure so much this season. And again, I didn't expect this offensive line to be leaps and bounds better. But the fact that we're still struggling a month into the season is pretty concerning to me. And I'd say maybe a little more surprising than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, I think my surprise for myself, okay, you went bad because you're such a negative guy.
Glass half empty.
Yeah, you're a glass half empty dude. I guess I'll go positive. It's not a surprise, but it's good to see what we were hoping for, is how much better the linebacker play is. How much better now with more depth and really just with more athletic guys to go with Debo. And like Demetrius Knight's really good in coverage.
Yep.
How many times last year do we see a linebacker getting beat in coverage?
A lot.
Yeah. You see how good Bengali.
Stone Blanton's pick six.
Tell you what, and look, God loves Stone Blanton. There's nothing against Stone Blanton. That was a heck of a play to turn at a moment where they needed a play. Stone Blanton was beat by like 3 or 4 steps.
Oh, yeah. If he's a half a step short, that's a wheel route touchdown.
But that goes back to pressure.
Yeah.
Remember, there was pressure on the quarterback, which forced a bad throw to Stone Blanton. The underthrow was forced by pressure. Blanton snagged it and went the other way for a score. The linebacker play, Bengali Kamara, who I'm becoming the president of the Bengali Kamara fan club.
It seems that way.
Because he's not out there a lot, but when he's out there, he's playing really well. He's up there thumping in the run game. He's okay as a pass rusher. It's just his reps and snaps have been very productive. He's like, the second or third highest graded defensive player by Pro Football Focus for this team.
Well, and I think this all goes back to the pass rush, because when you talk about putting heat on quarterbacks, you're having to keep your throws short if you're going to get them off. And you have linebackers like Knight and like Debo Williams that can be sideline to sideline. Boom, they're right on top of it. And, if you're catching a screen or whatever it may be, they're getting tackles for losses. So, again, when you have that pass rush, it helps everything else behind you on the defense be more successful.
And you throw those 3 guys in with Bam Martin Scott, and now you got 4 linebackers who are very athletic, who are running all over the place.
And they aren't having to be on the field for 95% of the snaps. You have rotation now.
God love Debo. They bought him a cot and just put it on the field.
Now,
Dude,
now Debo's the kind of guy you do have to pry him away from the field at times, because he's just such like, I want to play every single snap and go bust somebody's heads. But all right, bud, we'll let you take a breather. We got other guys that are very capable of doing the job too.
So I just think for me the positive is, it's not a shock or surprise, but it's, I guess, one of these, just what we were hoping for was the linebacker play improving the way it has.
And again, the offensive line not being all world isn't shocking either, but I was hoping they were going to be a little bit better at this point in time.
No, it's fair because, look, we've had this conversation about Casey Henry. He's been around for so long but he's been injured and not be able to play, that you would think he would be better than he should be, even though he's only started, to be fair, 5 games in his career. You just feel like he's a veteran, right?
He's been around for so long, and he's been hyped up too. I mean, and again, Colin Taylor was the president of the Case and Henry fan club. He talked ad nauseum about how great of a right tackle he was going to be. And again, we saw him for 4 snaps last year before he got hurt against North Carolina. So the anticipation is, okay, he gets back healthy. He's going to be a solid part of this line. And again, he's just getting put on skates again and again and again. And it's like, okay, are you gonna make the improvements? Is the bye week going to be beneficial for him, or is this something we're going to have to deal with all year?
So, yeah, I mean, he has been. It's been disappointing because you thought he would be better. I'm not saying he was going to be all SEC. I'm with you. But you thought he would be better just for the fact he's been in the program. Now, if this is 3rd year in the program, right?
Yes. Right.
So you thought he would be better than Josiah Thompson, I guess, is the best way to pitch it.
There was going to be growing pains with him. He's a true freshman. Like, that's going to happen. I don't think anybody predicted Torres Ellis Simpkins to be the best offensive lineman a month into the year.
Yeah, and Simpkins, especially in pass protection, he's been good.
Yes.
He has been good. And Rashawn Lee is the 2nd best offensive lineman. He's just steady. He's been steady.
You know, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but he's created quite a few like false starts and stuff. So
that's been the biggest problem, that eligible man downfield problem.
The simple mistakes, things that you wouldn't expect a veteran like him to be doing that have come back to bite him.
So that's kind of where I obviously overall, when you're sitting at 3-1 for the first time since 2017, things are all good and thumbs up. It's just the way this has gone and the way this defense has picked up from what it did in November of last year and even gone up to another notch in some ways. That's been a good thing. All right, it's Football Friday. We have no Gamecock football, but we have a lot of football we can talk about. There's a big game in the SEC, and we can focus on that coming back next between Alabama and Georgia. It is the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. If you don't have to go anywhere, don't go anywhere. It's just simple. I mean, the rain has stopped, right? I guess. When I just came in a few minutes ago, the rain had stopped. We still got some wind, but we hope the worst is behind us, knock on wood. But again, hopefully everything is safe and sound wherever you're at. Come back, talk some Bama and Georgia. That's next on the halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, roll until 3 here on the game. Oh, the halftime show on the game. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We are hanging here up until 3. Elijah will be hanging out with Jack Veltri. Elijah, his co-host part of the show, will be at Partee Golf in West Columbia, Charleston Highway. Long drive, the World Long Drive Championship going on at Partee Golf. We'll be out there again 3 to 6 with the post-game show. Elijah will be out there. Jack Veltri will be jumping in with him as well, but Elijah will be out at Partee Golf. Try not to get hit by golf balls.
Well, the wind being what it is today, I'd wear a helmet if I were you, Elijah.
Yeah, helmet. Maybe put those goggles on, the big thick like goggles.
Yeah. Bubble
workman
wrap.
goggles.
Yeah. Make sure he's safe.
Protect him. And get the catcher's mask with the little throat protector.
With the gizzard on the
Yeah, you need a
catcher's
gizzard
mask.
protector. Make sure he's okay, because you never know with that wind where the long drives might
You know
end
what?
up.
Let's just dress him up like a hockey goalie. Give him the whole thing, the pads, all 9 yards.
They just
the shin
submitted to a
guards.
show. Oh yeah, that looked good. I think we have the game. We have masks. You have the masks now with hockey goalies have all the stuff on it.
Yeah.
I think we have one that says the game.
Do that. Little airbrushed one.
Hook him in.
There you go.
Absolutely. So Elijah will be out there 3 to 6 today at Partee Golf, the world champion long drive competition. We thank the folks at Partee Golf for inviting us to come out. We thank you. Wish we could have been there all day, but we get it.
Yeah.
A little bit of weather.
I looked at the forecast and said hitting golf balls a long way, probably pretty hard, and
Yep.
60-mile-an-hour wind gusts.
Absolutely.
Just my 2 thoughts.
All right, it's Football Friday here on the game. Obviously, no Gamecocks tomorrow. That will be a week from tomorrow against Ole Miss. And we'll be at the party lot at Sound and Images. And, of course, Gamecocks Game Day, always sponsored by LexMed Ortho. All right, the big game is Georgia-Bama. This is interesting in so many different ways. And the first one, and I was talking about this earlier this morning at whatever time this was. I can't keep track at this point. What was interesting about this game, and what we've been hearing coming out of Tuscaloosa, and I understand it, I do. Oh, wow, what a breath of fresh air, Kalen DeBoer and his staff. They're out there, doing push-ups with the players on the practice field. Players are doing podcasts. Players are doing this and that, and everybody's smiling, and they're happy, and they're hugging each other, and they're roasting s'mores, and it's, golly, man, it's got that grumpy old guy out of here. This is so much fun.
Did you see the reaction? I think it was in the first game they played against Western Kentucky when he came out wearing the little hoodie on the sidelines.
No, I didn't see this.
Like, you would have thought people were having heart attacks in Tuscaloosa. Nick Saban never wore a hoodie. Then he goes out there and smashes them by 50 points. Like, all right, hoodie's fine.
Yeah. Well, Western Kentucky, right?
Yeah. And they've since done that to just about everybody else.
Yeah, and they were discombobulated for 3.5 quarters against South Florida again, but that score looked better than it was.
I saw somebody, I think, this was one of the guys in the Shutdown Fullcast, I think it was Ryan Nanny who I had on earlier this week. So that's the equivalent of flossing 3 times before you go to the dentist. You haven't done it the entire year, but you do it real quick just to make it look better for the dentist
true.
before they tell you have 4 cavities. That was kind of what Alabama did with those 4 touchdowns in the fourth quarter of that game.
Oh, yeah. That game was tight. I was watching it.
Yeah, it was like 14-13 with 10 minutes to go.
Tight. And Alabama didn't have any answers.
Because the football was apparently covered in butter every time Alabama had it.
It was crazy. That game was great. If South Florida, the kid Brown, the quarterback, who can run like nobody's business, just can't throw it, if they could have completed some passes, they had Alabama on the ropes.
Well, that was the thing, is they kept getting these gifts. And I think they were like 1 of 17 on third downs at one point. They couldn't do anything with it.
No, they just,
I was like,
they were very one-dimensional.
This was a more competent offense. Alabama might be down by like 3 touchdowns here.
Yeah, so people were nervous, and then the score became much prettier than it really was. And Alabama undefeated, Georgia undefeated. But I go back to this. I said this earlier this morning is, yeah, sure, Nick could be grumpy. Nick looked like half the time his goal was to have no fun at all. You ever seen the commercial for him with the Verbo?
Yes.
Him say, look, telling the family we have no fun.
Yep.
You can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. Kind of playing on his reputation, right? Which is, by the way, it's hilarious.
Oh, it's great. No, his acting chops are very good.
Yeah, he's
you
gotten
seen the one
much
with him
better.
in the Zen Garden for Home Depot.
Yes. So this whole thing of, we have this brush of fresh air and this personality and everything is, well, I just know one thing about the grumpy dude. He won championships.
Yes, he did, which made all that stuff perfectly fine. Because if you're chewing kids out every single day and you're Mr. Grumpy Old Man, but you're going 3-9, yeah, doesn't quite hit the same way.
He wouldn't be around long.
He would not.
Right? Because all of a sudden you're a grumpy old man. But when you're winning championships, you're an evil genius.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. If somebody came to Nick Saban and said, "Hey, how about we tone it down a little bit?" He just points to the trophy case and says, "Excuse me."
Tone
says,
this.
Sorry, sir. I'll be on my way.
And I really think this about Nick. I don't think he's as grumpy as we think he is. I don't think you can recruit to the high level Alabama's recruited to if you're that grumpy or that guy. And remember, we hear these jokes that he has with his players and things like that. So I don't know if he's as grumpy as he makes himself out to be to the media. I don't know.
I heard Andrew Whitworth, who played for him when he was at LSU 20 years ago, I think it was on the Rich Eisen show, talking about Nick Saban chewing him out one day after he was like late to a meeting or whatever. And he's like, man, he dressed me down in front of that entire team. He did it to somebody every single day. But he said Nick Saban studied sports psychology and was always trying to think one step ahead of everybody, not only what that chewing out meant to you, but what message it sent to the rest of the team. He doesn't do anything or never did anything without a purpose behind it. He wasn't just flying off the handle and yelling at people. There was a rhyme or reason behind it. And again, built to being the most successful dynasty college football's ever seen.
Yeah, I think with Nick, even how he was to the media, there was a rhyme or reason. I believe, again, he did. Of course, they all want to manipulate the media and control the media, but I think Nick also had a little extra behind everything he did with the media. I just believe that he is not what we think he is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because I don't think you could do what he did at that high of a level if you're just a grumpy old SOB and you treat everybody like dirt all the time. I don't think that's the way you're going to do what he did at his level. I think because, again, it comes down to even you're dealing with 18, 22-year-olds. And at some point, you've got to show a side of you that you actually care.
Right.
You just do. But the perception is, oh, this Kalen DeBoer guy, look at this, woohoo. Well, we'll see. If you walk off that field Saturday losing to Georgia, we'll see how yoo-hoo, wow, doing push-ups with the players, blaring music. We'll see.
Now, should the perception flip that quickly based on one game? It shouldn't.
Nope.
But there's a lot of people in that Tuscaloosa fan base that are waiting for that other shoe to drop, saying, see, told you this guy wasn't going to be very good. You lose by 2 touchdowns to Georgia. Oh, we're no longer in their league anymore. We need to figure out what's going on. Like the mood will flip pretty quickly come Monday morning in Tuscaloosa. Mac and Cube will get a lot of angry calls on their show if they lose this game.
Yeah, and look, it's not the end all be all, and it shouldn't be. I mean, you're taking over a team, you're putting in a new philosophy, a new coaching style, it's a new coaching staff. You did lose some players, all these things, and by the way, you're replacing the greatest head coach in the history of college football.
Right.
And yes, you're really good. Your record speaks for itself, Kalen DeBoer. But you haven't done what that dude's done, at least not yet. So I just love all this stuff. We've talked to people that cover Bama, and I've heard the same stuff. Oh, wow, this guy. The media's never had a guy talk to him this long or be this way or this or that or whatever, and these players now this and that. And look, the media, and I learned this really watching the Rex Ryan experience with the Jets. Mm-hmm. The media loved Rex. So Rex for years got a pass. Years got a pass because the media wanted Rex to keep that job. Why? He made the media's gig easier. The media will love up Kalen DeBoer as long as he makes the media's job easier. But the fan base doesn't care about the media's job.
Right.
Fan base wants more trophies. And by the way, the boosters want more trophies. And the money people want more trophies. So they're used to beating Georgia now at Alabama.
Kirby's 1-5.
So if Kirby walks off the field with a nice, easy victory on Saturday, fan base ain't going to be happy. Just saying.
I will say this. I do think it is it's tough when your first ever SEC game as a head coach is against Georgia.
Oh,
you know
absolutely.
what I mean? Like, they didn't get a Mississippi State. They didn't get a Vanderbilt. They didn't get like a ramp-up game, and then you face Georgia in the middle of October. Like, no, you play them right off the jump, and it's put up or shut up in your first conference game as a head coach.
That's a tough one to start with. And look, I said this, been saying this since Kalen DeBoer got the job. Kalen DeBoer is a hell of a head coach. Make no mistake.
Everywhere he's been.
Make no mistake. His winning percentage is filthy.
He took a under-talented Washington team to the national championship. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Michael Penix, Rome Odunze, but like overall, their talent level is not on par with most of the big dogs in college football last year.
Not at all. I mean, on paper, Texas should have beaten them by 2 touchdowns.
Right.
So, Kalen DeBoer can coach. Problem is, you're replacing the dude. And typically, you don't want to be the dude to replace the dude. You want to be the dude that replaces the dude to replace the dude. We'll see. We'll see where it goes. But it's going to be very interesting tomorrow as Georgia and Alabama. I think Georgia wins. I do. I just think I believe they're just a better team. Now, again, they have to get something going offensively down the field because they just have not been making explosive plays down the field.
Mm-hmm.
But I still think Georgia's the better team. And I think they will. Look, could it be close? Absolutely. I just think Georgia finds a way to walk with a W myself. Now, if they lose, it's not the end of the world for Georgia either.
No, well, and we can get into this on the other side because there's been a conversation this week of how the 12-team playoff has affected games like this because there's no doubt it doesn't quite mean the same that it used to.
No, not at all. And a lot of people are looking at Georgia's schedule moving forward. It's a bear. Georgia's schedule is really tough, starting with this Bama game.
Yep.
There are people that like computers have the higher percentage of them finishing 8-4 than them finishing undefeated now.
I believe it.
So we'll get into all that too, and talk about why these games don't mean as much as they used to on the next side, the other side, next segment. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. It's a Football Friday. We'll go till 3 on the game. Halftime show on a Football Friday. Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the game. As again, no Gamecocks obviously tomorrow, but we've been yipping about the big game in the SEC, Bama and Georgia in Tuscaloosa. And, you want to bring up the idea about how if this is last year, you don't want to get an L. Because if you get an L, you can't have another L the rest of the year.
There is a greater margin for error in college football now because we lived through the BCS and the 14 playoff era where you knew you either had to be undefeated or only have one loss to have any shot of playing for the national championship. And now that we have this expanded playoff format, which again, we've not seen it happen. We don't know what record gets you in, but based on, prior years and deductive reasoning here, you can still lose 2, maybe even 3 games if you're, in the SEC or the Big Ten and still make it in. So this game this weekend does not put a huge sense of urgency on the loser. So if Georgia loses, and again, they still got Texas, they still got Ole Miss, okay, they could still lose to one of those teams, go 10-2. Maybe they miss Atlanta, but still theoretically be in the playoffs. On the flip side of things, if Alabama loses this game, they could still theoretically lose another one to whoever, be 10-2, maybe even 9-3. Because again, if Georgia goes on to run the table and is undefeated, that's a good loss, and they're not going to ding you for that. So the sense of urgency for the losing team in a game like this has been diminished.
Yeah, because like you said, the world's not ending if you lose. Again, Georgia's schedule is a bear, moving forward. But, again, you lose this game, you can be a 2-loss SEC team and still get yourself in. You can also, in these leagues like the Big 12, that thing could be a mosh pit before it's over with.
I think it's going to be.
You could be a 3-loss Big 12 team and get the automatic bid if you win the conference.
Right.
Where before, you're a 3-loss conference champion and the power will go 5 because it used to be 5. You're out. You're not getting in.
No chance.
No. Now you're going to get in. So, yeah, everything's changed.
And on the flip side of that, that means when we get into November, there's going to be a lot more games that have playoff implications. You're going to have two or 3 loss Big 12 teams playing each other where it matters. Like, hey, winner of this, you're now number 2 in the standings. You still got a shot at making the playoffs. Like, that's cool. But at the same time, these games, when Georgia plays Texas here coming up soon, next month, aren't going to have the same kind of weight and meaning like they've once had. And again, that's unfortunately the trade-off that you get with an expanded playoff, which I'm excited for. I'm excited to see what happens. I love the fact that we get multiple rounds and we have, group of 5 gets thrown a bone to see what they can do. We got on-campus first-round games. That's all fine and good, and I'm looking forward to it. But it does, for the sport that has long been able to brag that its regular season has been more important than any other sport. You can lose. The Giants went 9-7 that one year they won the Super Bowl. They just got hot in the playoffs as a wild card and ran the table and won. Like, you have never been able to do that in college football. And I'm not saying that 7-5 teams are going to start making the playoffs, but now you're opening it up to teams that are more flawed having a shot at winning the national championship.
And I like the idea that we can not see, because let's face it, yeah, we got Cincinnati in, and yeah, we got TCU, and UW got in. But for the most part, we're seeing the same cast of characters in a 14 playoff.
Right.
And as much as we don't want to admit it, we do love the big dogs, because we do. Look at ratings. Whenever the big dogs are playing, the ratings are always higher. We love Cinderella to a point. Like, the best one is David versus Goliath, right? We love that one, especially if David is winning or hanging around.
Right.
We don't want too many Davids, because then you got a bunch of little weak Weasley dudes with slingshots.
Listen,
right?
you never want your Elite 8 in the men's tournament to be comprised of like 5 double-digit seeds.
No,
right?
That's when it becomes too much.
You get one, cool, great story, but you want the blue bloods in there too.
Yeah, and that's what we don't like. We all like to admit how much we love the underdog and the Cinderella, and we do to a point.
Right.
But we don't want to admit it out loud, and we hate to say it, but we also need some blue blood in our playoffs.
We don't want the sport to be a complete free-for-all. There's got to be structure where the best teams are still the best teams.
And when they get beat, it's special.
Yes, exactly.
Because we don't want to lose the specialness of a blue blood getting dumped by a David.
How many times have you watched an Alabama game just because it was like one score in the fourth quarter? And like, you may not care who that other team is. Like, man, you know what? I want to see Arkansas pick this win up, see if they can knock off. You just want to see if it can happen, right?
Right.
Like, there's fascination to see if somebody can do it because it was so rare in the Saban era.
And when they played Cincinnati, look, it was pretty obvious early on that this was not going to go well.
And if Alabama really wanted to, they could have put 60 on them. I think it was, 24-3.
Yeah, they were.
And they slept walk through half the game because they didn't want to, get too tired for the national championship.
They didn't just take their foot off the gas. They put the car in neutral.
Exactly.
And took a nap.
Yes.
So it just, you were hoping that there was going to be something in that game where you could go, whoa, but there wasn't. And, unfortunately, TCU gets the championship game after a fun semifinal win over Michigan. You're like, wow, that was, and then, Georgia squashed them like a bug on a windshield.
Right.
Michigan, look, Washington, it became obvious as the game went along that Washington, they weren't going to have a shot.
Right.
So the Blue Bloods are the Blue Bloods. But this opens it up. And, yeah, you're right. This does take takes the what's the word I'm looking for? That sense of urgency away from the regular season to a point. It's still important.
It is.
You still got to win your league. But at the end of the day, this doesn't make your season do or die if you lose tomorrow.
Yeah, the loser of this game is not suddenly on thin ice where they have zero margin for error going forward. Again, you could still lose another game, maybe even two, and be all right, which, again, it's the trade-off you get for a 12-team playoff. And, again, this game's going to feel huge, and the entire country's going to be watching it. It's still a big deal, but there's just like the teeth got dulled a little bit with the 12-team playoff aspect.
Yeah, but I think what happened, last year had perfect timing. Because last year was so controversial, right?
Right.
So this comes in at a perfect time because everybody had there was one or two teams that had a legitimate argument that they should have been in the college football playoff.
Right.
Georgia goes from best team in America, undefeated, to being a one-loss Georgia that lost the SEC championship game, in which was, by the way, not a blowout in any way, shape, or form.
3-point game.
Fell to number 5, which was ridiculous.
No, number 6.
Number 6,
they
that's
fell
right.
behind Florida State.
So they fell to 6, which is ridiculous. And I will always say this with no proof. If Georgia's in the playoff, they win their third in a row. Michigan cannot beat Georgia. I will continue to say that, even though, again, I have no proof to back me up. Maybe I'll have you play 1,000 simulations of that game on your college football EA Sports or something.
I can do that when my power's back on.
Yeah, whenever you get electricity again.
That's right.
The other part of it was I think Florida State got jobbed. I do. And, yes, did I think they were going to go into that college football playoff and do damage without their starting quarterback? No. But you know what they did? They went undefeated. They won their last couple of games, including an ACC championship, with backup quarterbacks.
No, it's like their fourth string quarterback.
I think that's value. But they legitimately got hosed. So we had 6 teams, really there's 6 teams sitting around going, well, we should be in. And this year, both of those teams would be in, and we could see what we think, because it's always been the I think system, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
No, the controversy of great teams getting left out isn't going to happen anymore, because, again, if you're worth your weight, you're probably going to get in. And the thing is, there's probably going to be some teams on the back end that maybe don't deserve to be in that same upper echelon of college football that are going to get in because they're ranked 10th, at the end of the season, and then get their doors blown off in their first game. It's
like my lack of pity for bubble teams in the college basketball men's tournament. It's like, guess what? You know how many teams are in this tournament?
Yeah.
If you're on the bubble, what did you do to put yourself on the bubble through the season?
You are the 70th best team in college basketball. I don't feel sorry for you.
At any way, shape, or form. And I'll feel the same way for team 13 in this thing. Or 12 or whatever. Like right now, the simulation, some of them come with Michigan being the 12th team, they get popped. Oh, well. What'd you do? Why you didn't handle your business, did you?
Should have looked more competitive against Texas.
Exactly. So I have no pity for any of you if you get knocked out on the bubble for this little tournament. All right, halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, 3 o'clock at Partee Golf for the World Championship long drive competition. Elijah will be out there. Post-game show 3 to 6. Again, that is today on Charleston Highway in West Columbia. Firehouse Sub Taxi Hour is coming up 803-404-6100 is the halftime show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head on the game. It's time for our Firehouse Up Text, the hour 803-404-6100 on the halftime show with Terry Ford and Tyler Head on a football Friday here on the game. What do you got, man?
This goes back to our conversation at the beginning of the show. Chris says, I shake my head at an SEC program like South Carolina, who is 4 games into the season and still trying to identify a wide receiver one.
I get it. And look, we've been talking about the wide receiver room even before the season started. We talked about it in the spring game. And I just think I look at it like it would be great to have somebody pop and be one.
Of course.
That would be great in a perfect world. If you don't have one, then basically, and we've seen, well, look, and I'll go to the NFL for this. Obviously, South Carolina and an NFL offense, it's totally different. But like, this is kind of like the model of the Buffalo Bills trade Stephon Diggs, right?
Yep.
And you don't go get another wide receiver one. Now, in a perfect world, you have a wide receiver one, right?
Yeah.
But what Josh Allen does now, instead of dropping back to pass, looking for Stephon Diggs all the time,
yeah.
Josh Allen drops back, goes to his first progression, covered. Second progression, covered. Third progression, open. I'm going to the open man. Right. Now Josh Allen's looking for the first open man, right, Tyler? He's not just looking for Stephon Diggs.
Right. And in the offseason, they drafted Keon Coleman, who they anticipate to be that guy at some point down the line, but he's not there yet.
Mm-hmm. And here's the other one. Again, I'm not. I know. Again, I'm trying to use the NFL as a model, and I know that college football is not the NFL, but teams are winning Super Bowls without WR1.
Mm-hmm.
Kansas City's WR1 is a tight end.
Or it was.
Right now, it's not.
Yeah.
But up until this year,
right.
I mean, they let go. Basically, they traded one of the most electric wide receivers in the game because he wanted to be the highest paid receiver in the NFL, and they couldn't do that.
Yep.
Or didn't want to do that, because you can if you want. You just didn't want to do that because you were paying other people. I agree with Texter. In a perfect world, you have a wide receiver. You have Xavier Legette, or you have Juice Wells in a perfect world. But I guess to combat that, your hope is going to be, unless one of these guys pop, is that you have enough coming out of that room to where guys are getting open, and whoever the quarterback is, go Lenore Sellers if he's healthy, can drop back, and within his one or two progressions, someone's open to get the football to. That's, I guess, what you hope for, unless one of these guys pop.
While you don't have somebody that has set themselves apart as a wide receiver one, you've got guys of substance. We've seen what Mazeo Bennett's done so far this year as a true freshman, which should excite you for what his career is going to be at South Carolina over the next couple of years. Jared Brown, through the first couple games, no, he was hurt last week and didn't play, obviously. Dre Jacobs, like, you have guys that are showing those flashes. Now, one of them's going to eventually have to go out there and haul in, 3 touchdowns and have a $140 in a game or something like that to really set themselves apart. But you have guys that are showing they are tier one of your receivers compared to the other guys in the room right now.
Yeah, and those 3 guys have multiple years left of eligibility, too.
Right.
The other part of it is I think that we've seen Dow doing more of the scheming guys open in the last few games as well. You saw it in the Kentucky game. They didn't. Dow and the staff did a really nice job of scheming guys open in the Kentucky game. And you're seeing a little bit more of that in the LSU game also. There was some of that as well. And, you watch it in Akron. I mean, they were beating dudes in the Akron secondary, but there was also some scheming going on. I think because you don't have you don't have Xavier Legette or Juice Wells or, Alshon Jeffrey or any of those guys who are just better than the DB.
Yeah.
And you're just going to beat them. You don't have that guy. So until you do, and hopefully one of these guys do pop, like you said, but until then, you're going to have to just drop back, go through your progressions, find the first open man or two, scheme them open, and we'll see where it goes.
You also don't have an elite quarterback right now. Like, Spencer Rattler's in the NFL. Mm-hmm. Like, he was an NFL caliber quarterback playing here that had a good rapport with Xavier Legette and Juice Wells the year before and was able to make that work. If you don't have an elite ball thrower right now, which Lenore Sellers is not there yet, we hope he's going to be, but he's not there yet, that also, it makes it tough to open up the passing game. You're also in an offense that's running the ball 70% of the time. So there's not as many opportunities to throw the ball, as many opportunities to make big plays through the air. So it's all a work in progress. I don't think we should hit the panic button because you do see potential there. It's just going to take more time. You would love to see it be better than it is heading into a game like Ole Miss next weekend, but it is what it is.
Because you're going to have to score points against Ole Miss.
Yes.
You scored 33 against LSU and lost. I mean, let's just be honest. You're going to have to score points against Ole Miss. That Ole Miss offense is better than LSU's offense. The other part of it, is a guy we really thought was going to, be doing something, just finally started playing on Saturday, Gage Larvidan.
Right.
Now, again, it was Akron. We always have to say that. But Larvidan made some plays down the field. He had 2 big catches, explosive plays, and drew a pass interference. So if Larvidan's healthy, you get Brown healthy, you have a freshman, Amazio Bennett, who has really showed you some stuff in 4 games. Maybe that helps to get that wide receiver room going in the right direction. But Texter, I get you. I understand. No, there's not a wide receiver 1 right now on this football team. But you hope things start to develop where the passing game continues to evolve and the quarterbacks evolve, the offensive line's protection evolves, everybody evolves, and all of a sudden you got an offense that's cooking. All right, football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors on a Football Friday. Coming up next, halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head here on the game in Columbia, Florence, and Myrtle Beach. Halftime show. Football, the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors here on the game. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. No football in our parts tomorrow. Gamecocks are off. They'll get it going a week from tomorrow against Ole Miss, and obviously we'll be deep diving into that big time starting Monday. Ole Miss plays Kentucky. Of course, that game is in the Grove in Oxford. So it's only... You'll get a little bit more of an idea of Ole Miss because, again, Kentucky is the anti-Ole Miss. They want to play slow. Maybe not as slow this year as in the past. They still want to play slow. They're more of a conservative football team that runs everything through their defense. And Ole Miss wants to play at 150 miles an hour. So it's going to be an interesting clash in the style. I don't think Kentucky Look, here's the sad thing about Kentucky. We talked about this when South Carolina was playing Kentucky. Kentucky has wide receivers. Those three guys are going to get an opportunity to play in the NFL.
Yep.
So the receiving room has some dudes in it for the Wildcats. They just couldn't get him the ball against South Carolina because Brock Vandagriff was running for his life. And Ole Miss, by the way, there's only one pass rush better than South Carolina's in the country. Ole Miss.
They're actually one behind.
Oh, really?
They have one fewer sack than South Carolina.
But their Pro Football Focus grade is higher than South Carolina's.
Pro Football Focus grade is higher. Now, again, they've not faced a substantial offensive line. I went back and looked. So Phil Steele ranks his top 68 O-lines. None of the 4 teams they played were in that. And, of course, Furman's an FCS team. So we'll find out how legit their pass rush is. And if they can get home like Carolina did a couple weeks ago, that's going to be worrisome next weekend.
Yes. And so there's a little bit of stuff we can glean from this Kentucky game because this is far and away the best team Ole Miss has played all year. No offense, Wake Forest.
The one fan is very angry.
There was 2. You're an exaggerator. Stop it. Some guy was like, hey, I'm trying to do my homework. You guys keep it down with the grunting. Thank you. So we'll get a little bit better idea of Ole Miss. Not everything, because I don't think Kentucky offensively is going to have the goods to be able to, because that's going to be a question with South Carolina, too, against Ole Miss. Can you generate enough offense to be able to score? Because Ole Miss, even if your defense can do some things against Ole Miss,
sure,
they're going to score points.
They are. I'm intrigued to see because, again, Kentucky held Georgia 13 points. They kept their offense on ice for most of that game. Georgia did just enough to escape out of there. If they can keep Ole Miss around 20 points tomorrow, I think that's a big win for Kentucky and instills a little optimism for next week that, okay, if our defense can hold them at bay, we might have a shot here.
Well, that's the thing, because, if Kentucky can slow down Ole Miss, because the Kentucky pass rush is nothing like what South Carolina has.
No.
So if Kentucky can put some distress on the Ole Miss offense, yeah, if you're a Gamecock fan, you're going, oh, okay, now we got something. Now we're cooking. All right, we got a formula here,
right,
to keep this thing the way we want it. So it is going to be interesting just to kind of peek at Ole Miss against Kentucky tomorrow, just to kind of get an idea who Ole Miss is, because against not a whole lot of defense, the Ole Miss offense has been ridiculous, and the Ole Miss defense on paper looks a lot better than it's ever been in the Lane Kiffin era.
They have the biggest point differential in the SEC, rightfully so. They've played Furman, Middle Tennessee State, Wake Forest, and Georgia Southern. Not exactly a murderer's row.
No.
Eric Russell's not at Georgia Southern anymore.
No. Running that option offense.
Yeah, no, it's not that anymore.
No, not at all. And so that's going to be interesting. And that's another thing we watch besides, Georgia and Bama. Interesting game, I think, on the Plains with Auburn and Oklahoma.
By the way, Auburn's favored.
I know. How about that? 2-2. Quarterbacks keep throwing the ball to the other team. And Oklahoma's coming in 3-1. And look, Tennessee controlled that football game from beginning to end. Oklahoma's defense did a nice job, keeping them in the game, so to speak. Even though you never felt like Tennessee was threatened, Tennessee didn't put a 50-burger on Oklahoma.
No, Oklahoma's offense was incompetent that entire game. There was no chance they were going to do enough to make anything happen. And Wes brought up a good point a little bit earlier that it seemed like Tennessee kept things a little more reserved in that game than maybe opening up their full playbook, but still, only allowing 25 points is worth something.
Yeah, Tennessee ran the ball a ton. They didn't throw it a lot, especially down the field. Because, again, in the second half, and I'll give Josh Heupel credit for this. Because a lot of these guys who want to play super fast and keep their foot on the gas all the time, that's all they know how to do, right? It's almost like Josh Heupel game manager showed up. My defense is crushing these guys. They can't get a first down. The only way Oklahoma is going to get in this football game is we start giving them the rock.
Yes.
We start turning it over. That defense is pretty good. Why don't we just run the ball? And run the ball and run the ball and run the ball and get out of here with a win. And if that's what Josh Heupel really digs, he's not going to admit it. That's pretty interesting game management by Heupel. Something typically guys who run that kind of offense,
yeah, it's just
they can't do it.
It's on the entire time.
Yeah, and that also goes to that point. As we always look at Tennessee, and we're always yipping about that passing game. What really fuels that offense is the run game. With the wide splits with those wide receivers, and you can't crowd the box, and they have a lot of space to run the football. That offense is so well done. It just really is. And were we talking about this on the show? I can't remember if we were or not. One of the things that they do is, because they were showing this on game day last Saturday, was the magic of they don't substitute.
Yeah, which means you can't substitute.
Which means you can't. So they run that base offense. Mm-hmm. And it's their guys they want on the field anyway. But if they're not substituting, you can't. And you know what's getting wore down?
Your defense.
Your defense is getting gassed.
Yeah, because they'll hit you for 12 plays, and it's, I don't know, the course over like 4 or 5 minutes, but it's play after play after play, 15 seconds apart. And yeah, you got the D linemen with their hands on their hips, breathing heavy, and sorry, bud, you can't substitute.
And it's funny, they show too, and if you watch Tennessee, you know this, but they were kind of talking about it when the wide receiver's like tapping on his head, like, get me out of here, man, I can't breathe. That's when they'll finally sub.
Yeah.
But their goal is to not substitute, so you can't substitute, and plus you can't go into dime packages or sub packages.
Yeah. You have your base at the beginning of that drive, and they're going to keep you in it the entire time.
It's so smart. It really is. I mean, again, I know that Tennessee, Vol Twitter can drive you nuts with their ridiculousness, but just to objectively look at that offense, and wow, that's pretty impressive.
And Heupel, once again, has a quarterback perfectly fit for that system. Hendon Hooker ran it flawlessly 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. Joe Milton was not the guy for it a year ago.
No.
Nico Iamaleava seems to be the guy for it this year.
Yeah. So Tennessee is very dangerous. And that defense is the best defense Heupel has had in Knoxville.
For sure.
So going back to Oklahoma playing A&M, I mean, these are two teams that really they can't figure out their quarterback situation, whether it's injury or ineffectiveness or both. And the 3-1 for Oklahoma doesn't feel like 3-1 because even when they were 3-0 going into that game last Saturday, people were still screaming and yelling about the offense.
Yeah, because they weren't efficient enough.
No, and Jackson Arnold is now benched. We played the cut of Brent Venables sticking up for why Dillon Gabriel isn't at Oklahoma anymore.
How much would they pay to have him right now?
They would take everybody's NIL money away from them and give it to Dillon Gabriel.
You guys will get nothing. Dillon's getting all of it.
Yes. Dillon gets everything. So, yeah, but they can say what they want about Dillon Gabriel, and I'll still go back to it. I get Dillon Gabriel's from Hawaii, and he said he wanted to be closer to home. Now, Eugene, Oregon, not a short car ride to the state of Hawaii.
Let's be honest. Anything short of playing for the Rainbow Warriors, not really that close. Even if he's in California, that's still a multi-hour flight to get there. There's no close unless you're actually in Hawaii.
No. I mean, so if you're Oklahoma, and I'm sure that, good old Uncle Phil's NIL checkbook probably had a nice check written for Dillon Gabriel at Oregon. But if you really want to keep Dillon Gabriel at Oklahoma, and I know that Jeff Lebby left, and that was also something that Dillon Gabriel talked about. If I'm Brent Venables, unless I am so sure on Jackson Arnold I can't see straight, I want to keep Dillon Gabriel because I know what I got with Dillon Gabriel. I got an upper level college football quarterback who has run my offense seamlessly the last 2 years. You know what I'm going to do? Again, this is just me. I am going to get the closest Jeff Lebby clone I can find.
Sure.
Well, I'm going to clone Jeff Lebby, like that movie with Michael Keaton. Yeah. I'm going to clone Jeff Lebby, and I'm going to have the Jeff Lebby clone be my offensive coordinator. and I'm going to get Dylan Gabriel together with the clone of Jeff Lebby, and we're going to sit down and make sure this offense is Dylan Gabriel-esque. And I'm going to make sure we can get the NIL folks to be able to compensate Dylan Gabriel to stay. And if I lose Jackson Arnold, no offense,
Yeah.
I'll lose Jackson Arnold.
It is a delicate balance now with the advent of the portal, with NIL, that a lot of schools have to make this decision. All right, do we try and get one more a year out of the guy that's proven and it's pretty good, or are we leveraging our future on the guy that we think we can have for another 3 years? Because if Dylan Gabriel's returning, Jackson Arnold's probably playing somewhere else.
He's gone.
He's like, all right, I'm not waiting another year to start. And I imagine with the NIL that he was pulling down as a backup, they're probably like, yeah, we can't afford to pay him the same thing to not do anything for another year.
Well, and here, I guess this is just me too. Where's your program? And who are you? Right? You're just coming off a double-digit win season if you're Oklahoma. You're in a good spot moving forward now. And what's the expectation at Oklahoma?
To win.
Yeah, not year one under Brent Venables. You got to go in with a double-digit win season. And if you would have been able to handle the fourth quarter a couple times, you'd probably been in the college football playoff.
Maybe.
Or be close, because that thing last year was crazy.
Yeah.
You'd have been right in the mix. So you've got your momentum going forward as a program now. You got your defense where you want it. Yeah, your offensive line, you got to replace that. But to me, if I'm Oklahoma, I want Dylan Gabriel back. And if I lose Jackson Arnold, okay, I'm losing an unknown. By the way, I'm Oklahoma. I can go recruit more 5-star quarterbacks.
Hey, hindsight's 2020. Because
And
now he's on your bench.
But I remember when this was going on, I was just like, you're just going to let Dylan Gabriel roll? Really? Now, look, to be fair to Brent Venables, maybe Dylan Gabriel did have his mind made up. He's leaving. There's nothing you're going to do to change his mind. Let's be fair for a minute. And maybe you could have got a Jeff Lebby clone. And maybe you could have matched NIL money that Uncle Phil was giving out at Oregon. Maybe you could have done everything in your power to keep him. And he still left. But it didn't feel like Brent Venables did everything in his power to try to keep him.
They did not dig their heels in and block the door.
No, and that's my thing is, now I guess I look at it this way. I'd rather have the really good quarterback I know than have the highly thought of high school hotshot 5-star that I don't know.
You either can put yourself in a position where you have one more year of a guarantee, or you open yourself up to the next couple of years being unknowns. Now, again, Jackson Arnold could have come in and been like Nico and been, a Heisman Trophy favorite and a superstar and all that kind of stuff and say, hey, it worked out. Mm-hmm. But now you're in a situation where you went with the unproven guy, and now he's on your bench. You're having to start another freshman who looked good in the end of the game against Tennessee, but he'd go out there and stink up the show this weekend, and then you're in the same boat as Auburn. And
exactly.
you're basically wasting a year.
Right.
Because you don't have a quarterback.
And I guess let's look at Tennessee for a minute. They didn't have that problem. They won't say it out loud. They got Joe Milton and Uber.
Yeah, they're like, you want to go to the NFL? Okay.
Hey, we're going to bring NFL scouts to watch you work out.
Because I think he had one more year. He could have come back, right?
I lost track. He might. He was around for so long. He was in Michigan for a while, and that was his second year at Tennessee. He was in law school. I don't know. But, Tennessee knew they didn't want another year of Joe Milton. So they had no problem with moving Nico into that spot. No problem. And look, I know it's not a game, but you watch these guys practice, right? And they're not getting starter reps, but you're watching these guys practice. And that can help you a little bit. And Tennessee's move was a no-brainer.
Yeah.
But I remember when Gabriel's leaving Oklahoma, I'm thinking to myself, man, you sure you want to go ahead and do that? Okay. All right, well, maybe, like I said, maybe they had no choice. Football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. There's a few games in the top 25 that are interesting as well. Tyler will take a look at some ranked versus ranked violence in college football this weekend. We'll talk about that next on the Halftime Show. It's a Football Friday with Terry Ford and Tyler Head on the Game.
Welcome back in. Halftime show. Tyler Head, Terry Ford along with you here on your Football Friday on the Game. Of course, no Gamecock football coming up tomorrow, and be able to kick your feet up and relax a little bit, not have to worry about the stress of what the Gamecocks are doing, and take in all the other great football happening around this weekend as we're slowly getting into mostly conference games now. You still got a few non-conference stuff, LSU taking on South Alabama, stuff like that. Florida's going to take on Central Florida next weekend. But as we get into October, it's really kind of mainly conference games for the most part now.
Yeah, and I want to get to this. You have a interesting cut from Joel Klatt that you played earlier.
Yep.
And I want to get to about schedules and how things have to change. I do want to get to that. But before we hit that one, Texas this week, Quinn Ewers is still healing up. Arch Manning, look, I know everyone loves Arch Manning, and we've seen in this little small dose the massive ability Arch Manning has. But you know what else Arch Manning looked like last week? A freshman or a redshirt freshman who hasn't played much. He had a couple picks, had some issues as his first game as a starter. You are playing a bad Mississippi State team without their starting quarterback. Blake Shapen's out for the year. I would rest Quinn Ewers another week and start Arch Manning.
Yeah, no, I mean, Texas is 37-point favorites in this game. They should have no problem winning with Arch Manning. And yes, when Ewers is healthy again, it is his job. There's not a controversy. Manning can go out there and throw 6 touchdowns tomorrow and 500 yards. It's Ewers' job when he's healthy.
And Sark knows that.
Yeah.
Look, I'll give Steve Sarkisian credit where I didn't think I would give him credit. It feels like, and we'll see, we still got a ways to go in this season. If Texas can continue to play at the level they've been playing at, because they have some tough ones, because they got Georgia, the game is at home, but they got Georgia, and they got some other games that's going to test them, like going into College Station. The cult will be ready.
They've been frothing at the mouth for a while now.
They are, yeah. So that's going to be, that might, look, playing Georgia's a bear, obviously. But playing in College Station is going to be a thing. So Texas has a few games on their schedule that could trip them up. But if Sark can go through this season and Texas gets back into the college football playoff, whether they win the SEC or not, I will give him his what he deserves. And look, dude, I didn't think you would be the guy at Texas.
You'll say Texas is back.
I might say Texas is back if he can do it again this year. Back-to-back trips to the college football playoff, even at a 12-team field.
It's only 6 years after Sam Ehlinger made his proclamation.
Do you know that's the last time Kirby Smart lost to a guy not named Saban?
I heard you say that this morning, and I had to think about it. I was like, yeah, it was January 1st, 2019, but the 2019 Sugar Bowl, that's crazy.
Now, I couldn't remember which bowl it was off the top of my head, but I knew it was a New Year's Day deal.
Yep.
And that's the last time Kirby Smart has lost to someone not named Nick Saban.
That is insane.
It's an insane stat.
That is still an active head coach.
Yes.
He's lost to Dan Mullen as well.
Right. But the active, and again, you forget, because people go, Tom Herman's still active?
Yeah,
yes, in Florida Atlantic.
Will Muschamp is no longer a coach.
Will's
head
not
coach anymore.
active. Mullen's not active, and Nick's not active.
Yep.
The last active coach to be Kirby Smart, Nick Saban.
That's right.
I mean, Tom Herman. It's like you sit there and you go, wow, oh my God. But that's how good Georgia's been. And so you think back to, everybody thought Texas was back when they beat Georgia in the bowl game.
And we clowned them for the next 5 years.
Yeah, because they deserve it. But I will say, if you can get to back-to-back college football playoffs, and you navigate the SEC to where you're sitting at maybe not winning the league, but you are so high up in the league, you get back to the college football playoff. Let's say a 2-loss season
in your first year.
In your first year, I will give you your props, because I didn't think so. I didn't think Sark would be the guy, and we'll see if he is for sure. But I just thought you need a guy with, again, just like Florida, someone who can puff their chest out against all the people that want to meddle in the program, because Texas has got a ton of them that want to put their fingers in everything.
Right.
Maybe Sark is that guy. We just don't see it when he's in front of the media. I don't know. But if Sark can pull off another trip to the college football playoff this year and go, 10-2 or whatever the case, okay, man, I'll give you props.
Matthew McConaughey will be thrilled.
Does he just follow Texas football around now, not even make movies or TV shows or anything
remember
anymore?
He was teaching the film class there for a while.
Yeah. But he's made a few bucks, though.
Can you imagine what the wait list for that class must have been?
You think any of them are guys?
No.
All right. Our boy Matthew. Oh, so I would start Arch Manning, give Quinn Ewers another week. Because, Mississippi State's terrible. They don't have their starting quarterback. And after this, you get the State Fair game with Oklahoma, even though that looks like you should win that one. Then it's Georgia. Again, that game's in Austin. And Oklahoma's defense is legit. We can say we want about their offense, but that defense is real.
Yeah.
So let Quinn Ewers rest another week, and then you bring back Quinn for the Oklahoma-Georgia back-to-back.
I also think you're benefiting yourself for the future talking about, these young quarterbacks getting their opportunity to start. You give Arch Manning effectively 2.5 starts this year. Well, that puts him that much farther ahead for next year.
Yeah, and if you look for in this schedule, I don't know if the SEC said, let's make Texas as good as we can. This schedule, after the Oklahoma-Georgia double, you go to Vandy, you get Florida in Austin, you go to Fayetteville. I'll tell you what, that might not be the hornet's nest that College Station is, but the hate for Texas and Fayetteville isn't far behind the hate for Texas and College Station. Remember a couple years ago, Sam's was it Sam's first year, second year when they won 9 games? Second year.
Yep.
When the Arkansas won 9 games, they punched Texas in the lower extremities in Fayetteville.
Yeah, it's
repeatedly.
It's old Southwest rivalry.
Yes. So the hate in Fayetteville for Texas is pretty intense too. Then you get Kentucky at home, and then obviously the game in College Station. I feel like the Georgia and the A&M games are the two that are really going to test you. Could you trip up at Arkansas? Because it feels like they might be a little bit better than we were thinking they would be, maybe. But I don't think Kentucky's got the goods to beat you. Georgia either. Both those games are in Austin. God love Vandy. They're better than we think, but Vandy at home is not going to beat
and
Texas.
Texas, that would be a home game for Texas.
You think? I think it's a home game for South Carolina.
Probably.
When the Gamecocks roll into Nashville, I wouldn't be surprised, would you?
No,
Nashville's a cool town to go hang in, man.
Everybody wants to hang out in Nash Vegas.
Mm-hmm. Make it a weekend. Have fun. Get there on Thursday night. Do your thing on Friday. Go to a football game. Hopefully you get a W. Do your thing Saturday night.
That's right.
Sunday, hopefully you're not hungover too much. You can get out of the hotel and head home.
Simple as that.
Just saying. I want to get back on the other side. Joel Klatt had a very interesting riff on his podcast about the randomness of conference schedules in college football now that we're changing the world needs to end and go into a different model. And Joel Klatt will tell you the model he's looking at. That's coming up next. It's a halftime show. It's football in the 1 o'clock hour, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Again, a couple things going on today. First of all, we will be live at Partee, the World Championship, the World Long Driving Championships, the World Long Drive Championships going on at Partee Golf, 3 to 6. We will be there today. Elijah will be hanging out there doing the post-game show. Also, Jack Veltri will be jumping in with Elijah as well. Tonight, high school football scoreboard, Love Chevy high school football scoreboard show with Elijah and Justin Hall. It's a condensed version because the way the weeks had to set up because of the weather in high school football. 7 to 9 tonight, and Justin will be on with us. That's
here,
next.
A couple minutes, actually.
He'll be here in a couple minutes. We'll get to Joel Klatt on the other side. Justin is coming up next. We got, you know what? He hit me up telling me how well he picked those games last week.
He's good.
No, he lost one.
He's good.
Do you think if he only would have won one, he'd have been texting me?
You usually don't brag about those kind of things.
No.
Like, you don't brag about your picks on Gamecock Central too often.
Because they stink. All right, Justin Hall, come next. We'll talk some high school football. We'll get that Joel Klatt as well in the 1 o'clock hour. It's football, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors on a Football Friday here on The Game. Football, and more football in the 1 o'clock hour on a Football Friday. Terry Ford, Tyler Head hanging out with you here on the game as we roll up until 3. Love Chevy High School football scoreboard show tonight, condensed version 7 to 9, because it's been a little crazy this week. A little bit crazy. We get Justin Hall in here, who couldn't wait to let me know, or the audience last Friday night, how well he picked the games last week. Now, where'd you go? You only lost one last week?
I went 3-1. I mean, I'm not gonna brag. I'll take a victory lap. I'm terrible at picking games. And if you're picking high school football games, I didn't anticipate doing that last week. You're the one who put me in the box.
I know.
If I get put in the box, you best believe. Listen, a 3-1 record isn't bad. Of those 4, that tonight I don't anticipate doing as well if I get put in that position again. But hey, 3-1. You know, if you're batting 750, my Braves wouldn't be battling for a wild card spot on a Monday against the Mets.
Getting ready to say you'd be batting ahead or behind Ozuna if you were hitting 750.
Exactly.
This week we're not going to have you pick winners. We're going to have you pick against the spread.
If there's a spread, okay. If there's a spread on high school sports, get help.
Exactly.
Don't do it.
Have you ever seen?
Definitely. You need to call that number in the commercial.
Yep.
Have you guys ever seen? I forget. I don't know if it was a 30 for 30 or if it was just some special. It was on ESPN showing these guys in the stands at Pop Warner football games in Florida gambling on Pop Warner games.
If there's a competition, you can bet on it. People are going to do it.
They were handing money and getting in fights in the stands at Pop Warner games in Florida.
That doesn't surprise. I mean, it is Florida.
It's Florida.
So.
Yes.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me.
It's Florida. All right, there, Justin Hall. What do we have going? Let's start off. We'll preview these games. I had Saluda at Newberry. Give me a little bit of something on that game.
Saluta's undefeated. They're 4-0, very quiet, sneaky 4-0. We're monitoring now that we're into region play. Everyone's playing in their region this week. There are no exceptions now. You're either on a bye or you're in region play. So Saluta's 4-0 in region play. Newberry got a big win last week. They're 3-2. Sneaky game up at Newberry for a local team-ish in Saluda. One that we're watching because we always like to track these undefeateds. That undefeated team number has been cut in half in 2 weeks across the state. So the undefeateds are dropping like flies across the states.
All right, next up is Great Collegiate at North Augusta.
Great Collegiate, game number 2 in the new region, which I was told by a coach in this region is pound for pound one of the toughest in the state, maybe behind that region with Dutch Fork, Irmo, and all those other guys in 5A. But Gray got a good win last week on the road at Midland Valley, got to go to North Augusta this week. That's the last of a 2-game tilt against 2 teams that combined for a loss last year in the regular season. If they can get through tonight, they got a game next week against a winless Brooklyn Casey, and then the following week against my Airport Eagles, who look to be on a 2-game win streak after tomorrow. So Great Collegiate on the road at North Augusta. If they can start 2-0 in region play, finally playing region games after no one played them last year in their region, be a good start for Great Collegiate this year and could have them well on the way to certainly a playoff berth and a region title possibly.
Well, undefeated until they run into that buzzsaw that is Airport.
Hey, that Airport defense, man. Finally got that win last week, 1-3.
Justin Hall hanging out with us, co-host of the Love Chevy High School Football Scoreboard Show, along with Elijah Campbell. Here tonight, starting at 7. Of course, the captain of that ship will be Ed Bird, like always. Those 3 tonight, again, at 7 here on the game in Columbia 107.5. All right, Lancaster. Is it Lancaster or Lancaster here in South Carolina?
It's Lancaster because we're in the South.
Okay, because it's Lancaster also in PA, but in California it's Lancaster. Just saying.
Correct.
All right,
Yeah,
Lancaster
correct.
is at RNE. What do you got for me there?
RNE's 5-0. They got a big win last week over Camden on the road, double digits. It ended up being a closer game in the second half. Nobody scored, actually, in the second half, which a bad luck stat. If you tell me Will Wilson is held scoreless in the second half, I would have thought Camden would have won that game. But RNE's undefeated, playing really well. North Carolina State commit Will Wilson at quarterback there. Dave Dorn could use Will Wilson now.
Yes.
Unfortunately, he has to wait. And I'll save my opinions for Will's committed to North Carolina State, and that's great. but they might need more than just a quarterback. But Arnie, we're tracking this. Arnie's one of those teams that just in recent years, we're talking this last decade and a half, have not been very good. And here they are, undefeated in the early part of the season again, trying to stretch it into region play this year, unlike last year. They've got a really good football team and a really good offense. In region play, game number 2 there, they're one step closer to solidifying a playoff berth. And, again, just like Great Collegiate, trying to position themselves to play for a region title in late October.
All right, finally, Swansea at Columbia.
Swansea fell last week, and I can't remember. I think that might have been my only loss. So I'm a little upset with Swansea, but they're a one-loss team playing another one-loss team in the Midlands. The Columbia Capitals are 4-1, and that's their best record since like 2012 or 2013. It's a renaissance amongst local high school teams in the state. So Swansea at Columbia, another good one we're watching tonight. The schedule is slim pickings tonight because a lot of teams played on Wednesday. No one played last night, of course. And then you got some teams playing tomorrow. Thank goodness it's a bye week. If you're a Gamecock fan, you can go watch some high school football. And then some teams are even playing on Monday. So we will, for the first time maybe ever on the Love Chevy High School Scoreboard Show, we are recapping, updating, and previewing all at the same time tonight. So it should be a lot of fun.
Very nice. Now, I was kidding with you about the spread, but we will do the over-unders.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, all of them over.
I'm going to let you retire 3-1. Let you feel good about yourself.
I'll take it. I'll take a bow. Thank you.
Hey, my man, we appreciate you like always. It's starting 7 o'clock tonight. You, Elijah Campbell, Ed Bird, the Love Chevy High School Football Scoreboard Show. And we'll yap with you again next Friday.
Sounds good. We'll see y'all then.
All right, talk to you later. That's Justin Hall, co-host along with Elijah Campbell on the Love Chevy High School Football Scoreboard Show every Friday. This week, again, condensed to 2 hours because of all the stuff that's been going on because of the weather. But we'll get back to 7 to 11 next Friday.
And if you're betting on high school football, you need to call the number.
1-800, I'm an addict. Yeah.
Well, it's different in every state.
Yeah, it is.
That's why the little disclaimer at the end of those commercials are 2 minutes long.
Oh, they're crazy, aren't they? And they speed them up really fast.
Well, because you got to call this number in this state, get text the red line in Tennessee, and then on this in this state, you got to go to this website so you can get help. It's different for everybody.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm like that because I don't really wager a lot because I'm too poor. But betting on high school sports, betting on exhibition games, summer league basketball.
I am not going to let my financial situation hinge on some kids with braces.
No, not really. Okay. So, Dad, why's your car being towed away? Bet on some Pop Warner football again, kids.
Dang 10th grader couldn't score me a touchdown.
Little 11-year-old punk. All right, so we have our Firehouse Sub Text the hour coming up. Also, Joel Klatt. This is interesting because I think Joel's onto something. That of all the things that are changing in the world of college football, scheduling has to change as well. If we want to make this thing fair across the board, which, by the way, college football has never been fair across the board. That's coming up. It's a Football Friday, and we do football in the 1 o'clock hour. Again, Firehouse Sub Text the hour. Pop them into us, 803-404-6100. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford and Tyler Head, appreciate you hanging out with us here on the game. Halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. We're just chilling here on the game. Football in the 1 o'clock hour on a Football Friday, sponsored by Atlantic Windows and Doors. Time to get our Firehouse Sub text the hour cooking. 803-404-6100. What do you got there, my man?
So we talked about the Dylan Gabriel, Jackson Arnold situation. Nama's texter brings up a good question. Says, on that note, would you risk losing Sellers by recruiting a guy who we expected to start? Now, I don't know if they're talking about this for this past offseason or going forward. Obviously, going forward, we don't know what Sellers' season's going to end up looking like, but it was very clear that Shane Beamer was not going to bring in somebody that expected to walk in here and start. Wanted to bring in somebody that was going to compete with Sellers, but the implication that Sellers had the job pretty much the entire time.
That's a very interesting question. Nice one on the Firehouse Sub text line. Thank you. All right, let's take a look at this really fast. South Carolina was coming off a disappointing 5-7, right?
Yep.
You obviously don't want to repeat a 5-7. You want to get yourself going in the right direction. You're not on a hot seat, though. You know you've got a season to where if you get it going back in the right direction, you get back to any type of bowl game, everything's good. You've watched Lenore Sellers in practice. You've seen a taste of him in a couple of games. If you're that sold on Lenore Sellers, then you ride and die with Lenore Sellers like South Carolina has. Now, I'll say this. If the Gamecocks, let's say, last year, not say 10-win team, let's say they won 7, 8 games, whatever. And we didn't get to see Lenore Sellers at all. And he didn't get a taste. And you have returning players coming back. And you have 7 or 8 wins last year. I think you have to investigate what kind of veteran signal caller you can get in the portal who can keep your momentum going and keep you on the right path you're going on, a guy that you know has been successful, whether, like, for an example, like a Will Howard went from Kansas State to Ohio State, you got a Cam Ward going to Miami. Now, again, maybe you can't get that ilk because of NIL dough.
Sure.
Or maybe you don't want to go that high in the pecking order on NIL money. But you go get a guy who has got experience winning or has been a starter on a winning team in a winning program who want to go in the portal. But I just think in that every situation is different. I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But this time you come off a 5-7, you're not on the hot seat. You've got another year to be able to get yourself back to a bowl game. You really like what you've seen with Lenore Sellers in practice. You liked the little bit you saw in games, and you really believe in your heart this is your guy. Okay, fine, but you know what? He's got to be your guy, right?
Yeah. No.
You know, but if you swing and miss and he struggles all year, let's say it never gets where you want it to be, then you got to go in the portal.
Yeah, definitely so. No, if you had enough of a sample size last year or just didn't know in general what Lenore Sellers was and you had uncertainty at that spot coming into this year, if a KJ Jefferson had interest, I think you go after him. But again, they felt like they'd seen enough and the offensive staff was high enough on him that they said, no, this is going to be our guy. We'll bring in somebody to compete with him, which is what Robbie Ashford did. But it wasn't like, hey, we got to go out there and find our starter this offseason. And we don't know who the guys were, but apparently they turned guys away that wanted to come in here and just be handed the keys.
So, I mean, let's take a look back really quick. Because in the NFL, the quarterback position's a crapshoot. Let's just be honest. If you see, and I did this last year, Jay and I were rolling the halftime show. I went through quarterbacks drafted in the first round, and I forgot how many years I went back. It is truly a 50-50 shot of who is whatever level of success, some level of success compared to guys who were busts.
Right.
Or underwhelming. So you really are flipping a coin, man. You truly are flipping a coin. And so when you look at the drafting in the NFL of quarterbacks and you look at the first round of it, okay. I mean, Patrick Mahomes, hindsight, you don't even think about taking him first overall, right? But you didn't then?
Yeah, when he was drafted, no. It was like, what, 12th?
There were teams that didn't want to draft Patrick Mahomes.
Mitch Trubisky went ahead of Patrick Mahomes.
Think about this for a minute. Run that through your skull. Mitch Trubisky was drafted ahead of Patrick Mahomes.
What, 30 guys got drafted ahead of Lamar?
Yeah. And well, the Ravens drafted back into the first round to get Lamar on the 32nd pick. So it's such a crapshoot with quarterbacks in the NFL. Now let's look at these guys that moved around in the transfer portal in college football. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. Cam Ward's been a massive success at Miami. Will Howard has been fine at Ohio State. They haven't really needed him to be anything special, to be quite honest. He's been fine at Ohio State. DJU.
The less said, the better.
But were we surprised at that one?
No, not
No.
really. He looked a little better at Oregon State, but not leaps and bounds.
Not like, wow. Boy, look what Florida State just did. And then you've got Dylan Gabriel, who's doing a nice job so far at Oregon. Off the top of my head, 3 of the 4 are going all right. So it feels like that veteran quarterback who goes in the portal for whatever his reasons, it feels like you have a pretty good shot. It's not 100%. You have a pretty good shot of getting a guy that can come in if you do it the right way at your program with his skill set and what he can do for you and making sure you're running an offense that fits what he's done before. He can be successful. You feel like the hit rate is higher than 50% right now.
Right.
It's not perfect. I would say Spencer Rattler was a hit.
Yeah, for sure.
So getting that veteran quarterback who is at a certain level of success, that feels like it's not 100% foolproof, but it feels pretty good. Now you go with the fancy 5-star recruit. You know, we should do this. This should be something. How many 5-star quarterbacks have gone on to be successful in college football with the team that recruited them?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I mean, right now, Jackson Arnold sitting on the bench at Oklahoma. Malachi Nelson sitting on the bench at Boise State. Nico is really nice start at Tennessee. The kid Moore transferred from UCLA to Oregon to sit behind Dylan Gabriel for a year. That'd be an interesting little exercise we could do.
See what I can scrounge up on that.
Texter, very nice work. You gave us a nice little thought exercise there. We appreciate you at 803-404-6100. It is the halftime show. What's trending at 2? Joel Klatt definitely next. We got to play this. It's very interesting. It's coming up here on the halftime show in the game. What's trending at 2, sponsored by Traditions Fine Jewelry and Gamecock Traditions on a Football Friday here on the Game Halftime Show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. All right, I want to get to the Joel Klatt thing in a minute because I think it's very interesting about future scheduling in college football because the way it's been done, like everything else in college football, it feels like needs change. And it needs to be more uniformed, sort of like the NFL does schedules.
Right.
I think it's a very interesting thought by Joel Klatt we're going to get to in a minute. But first, there was a Thursday night football game last night. There were a few real, wow plays in this game. Here's one of the few wow plays. Hit it.
Being physical in the run game.
Second year out of North Dakota State to the sideline. Here goes Lamb. He gets free on the inside. C.D. Lamb. Touchdown.
Now, if you like touchdowns, this was not your game, especially in the second half. If you dig field goals, this was your jam.
If you dig field goals, the Giants are your team this year. They are a menace when it comes to kicking field goals.
Man, if field goals were worth more than touchdowns, how good would the Giants be? Look, the Cowboys won, and that's all that really matters is you post a W. Was it impressive? No. Were the Giants any good? No. If you're a Cowboy fan, should you feel better about your team? No.
You avoided starting 1 and 3.
That's the only positive from last night. I mean, Dak was good, solid.
And the flame underneath Mike McCarthy's butt is a little less hot today.
Yeah, he's just got that
bit.
little. He feels it a little bit, not as much.
Just a little, not a lot, just a little.
And look, you stopped the run for once. Defensively. Dak was really good on first down in this game. It was efficient through the game. Your defense was better, but the Giants aren't any good. Micah Parsons had an ankle thing at the end. He's going to get an MRI today. And Dexter Lawrence was hurt as well. Mm-hmm. But they think he'll be fine in 10 days when the Cowboys play again. The Cowboys being 2-2 is not shocking. We talked about it coming this season. Eventually, the salary cap Grim Reaper gets you. And the Cowboys haven't really handled it well in how they've maneuvered, like Dak's contract, CeeDee Lamb, whatever. They've kind of rolled their own way on this, and it's going to bite them at some point soon. The team's not as good. It's not as deep. You dusted off Ezekiel Elliott, for the love of God, to play running back for you. Because, I think they're paying him hourly at this point. So this is not a surprise. But the other thing about the Cowboys, and I know this is just the way it is in Dallas now, but eventually, if you're a Cowboy fan, you hope it would stop. They have reached that point with Dak and Micah Parsons. You know when you get that point in a relationship where nothing that person says is right?
Sure.
That's where the Cowboys are. When Dak and Michael Parsons talk now, it feels like the teacher from Peanuts. It's cliches. It's tough guy talk. It's all the things you're supposed to say. And I know, I get it. Well, Terry, what should they say? Well, you know what they should say? It doesn't matter anymore. If they don't talk, they're wrong. If they do talk, they're wrong. If they take accountability and ownership of what's going on there, they're wrong. If they point the finger, they're wrong. Everything they say, and it just hit me last night listening to both of them, nothing either one of the two quote-unquote leaders of that team have to say is the right thing anymore. Because you know what? The Cowboys haven't seen an NFC Championship game in 30 years.
I was not alive the last time they played in one.
Think about it.
There you go.
So it's to the point now where whatever you say is, we don't care. Just go do something.
Yeah.
Go do what you're yapping about, please.
And when you look at their past couple of years, you can't even get excited about a good regular season.
No.
You can go 12-5. It's like, all right, well, do something in the playoffs. Don't get run out of your own building by the Packers, but when they score 40 points in the first 5 minutes, you know what I mean? Like there is no redeeming quality of this team. Sure, you can beat Tom Brady on his way out the door in Tampa Bay, but you didn't do anything past that.
No, that Tampa Bay team was a mess.
Yeah, they limped into the playoffs in a very bad division. Like Dallas winning that game was not shocking.
I mean, it was not a surprise. And here's the thing now, and the Cowboys, the Ravens, and the Bills. No one cares what you do in the regular season. You now, it's either Super Bowl or it's a failure. It just is at this point for all three franchises.
We kind of expect, like, all right, you're probably going to win double-digit games, likely going to win your division. Okay, now do something in the postseason.
You do something in the postseason. That's where we circle back to Dallas. All this yapping and yammering and all the tough guy talk and all the cliche talk. And look, all that matters now is for you to go and at least get the NFC Championship game for the Cowboys. If not, the season's a failure and you move on. And it's just all the circus around this team and the bowing up talk you get, and just stop. It just because and the biggest thing with me watching Dallas and why I think they've gotten to that point now where they're that person in the relationship where just nothing you say matters anymore. I think what kind of gets me is they're the bully until they get punched back.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then they go running away, whining and crying to their mom. That's it. If they get on you early, they'll run you out of the building, right?
Sure.
We've seen
against Cleveland week 1.
But when you punch them back, we saw what New Orleans and Baltimore punched them. And what Dallas do?
They went to the fetal position and cried.
Yeah, so I think that's my thing, too. Hearing all this talk during the week from the Cowboys and from Jerry and, Jar, and from, everybody but Mike McCarthy, matter of fact, which is kind of ironic. All this yammering all week long, and we know who you are by now.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Because, look, Cowboys, they're America's team. They're going to play on national television every single week, and they're going to be shoved down your throat. If they were good consistently, all right, that's fine. It's one thing. It's one of the best teams in all of the NFL. Okay, but the fact that you're consistently being shown a mediocre product and being told that it's better than it actually is, that's what frustrates people. Because it's like, I don't want to watch the Cowboys. They are a B-plus team at best in the NFL right now that's going to fall apart in the playoffs. Like, we that's their identity these days. That we just know who they are. Like, it's different than what Kansas City's doing or Baltimore or Buffalo. Like, these established organizations that have a legit shot at maybe going to the Super Bowl, Cowboys aren't that team.
No, and it's one of those things where, and they're America's most polarizing, maybe America's most polarizing team in general. Forget what sport, because it's just like half the country loves them, half the country hates them, and people watch them to love them or hate them. But you're right, when you're being shoved the Cowboys all the time, the side of the country that hates them, they'd watch them anyway because they were so good. You want to see them lose,
sure,
right?
Sure.
I want to see Aikman and those guys lose, Staubach and those guys lose, whatever it was. I want to see them lose because I hate them. And when they won, you hated them even more, right?
It's the opposite of the Alabama effect. Like, for the past 15 years, Alabama has been at the forefront of college football news. No matter where you turn, you're going to hear about Alabama. You're going to see them in the big games on TV because guess what? They were winning. And they won national championships. And you probably hated Nick Saban's guts. You respected him as a coach. And you watched to see, like, man, that's a great team. I want them to lose, but they're probably not going to. It's the opposite because they have the pedestal of Alabama without the trophy case in the past 30 years.
Right. Their mouths have a trophy case.
Sure.
That's all it is. It's just empty rep is what it is at this point. All right, so they won last night, beating the Giants 20-15. To go to 2-2, Giants fall to 1-3. The Giants are like, hey, at least we only lost by 5. Last year, the Cowboys beat them by a combined 700 points or whatever. Killed them.
I think the Cowboys have now won 14 out of the last 15 in that one.
Yeah, the Cowboys with Dak Prescott at starting quarterback haven't lost to the Giants since I think Prescott's rookie year or something like that.
By the way, the heat maybe turned down a little bit on McCarthy. It turned up more on Brian Daboll.
Yeah, it did. I mean, the worst thing Daboll did was go to the playoffs his first year.
Oh, that set you up for failure immediately.
Absolutely. Especially when you kind of overachieved and got there by these. And then you won a playoff game. Remember, you went to Minnesota and crushed the Vikings.
Yeah.
So, all right. Joel Klatt has a podcast. Also, Fox Sports does games, does color. You'll see him
Saturday
on pregame show, all this stuff.
Gus Johnson yelling about barbecues.
Gus Johnson has grown on me. In the beginning, I was like, oh, my God, stop. But now I'm almost like, yeah, he's Gus Johnson. It's what he does.
One game a week.
Yeah, it's what he does. It's his thing. It's cool. It's okay. Here's Joel Klatt talking about conference schedules. The randomness of conference scheduling has to end. Here's Joel Klatt. Interesting riff.
The randomness of how schedules are made in the Super Conference era has got to end. It has to end. And I understand this is the first year of the Super Conference, but even then, this cannot be the schedule lottery at this point. I think it's too important and it's too easy of a fix. Teams that finish higher in previous years should have more difficult schedule in subsequent years. And I believe that should happen on the conference level. I also believe that should happen on the non-conference level. That is way too easy of a fix. Think of it this way. The more you turn, like if there are levers, okay, and you have like, hey, there are things we can do as a conference or an entity that will make competition higher. If you pull those levers, it makes the product better. The more levers that you pull that make it easier for some teams to succeed versus others, then your product hurts. That's why the NFL is so much better than Major League Baseball, because the product levers of competition are pulled much more stringently in the NFL. Basically, I believe that we should have schedules based on where you finish within the conference. I believe that we should have schedules that are made for you in the non-conference as well. I don't think schedules should be made way out into the distance.
Yeah, I mean, the NFL schedule model tries to make everything. The NFL's goal is have everybody go 500. Well, you can't do that anymore because it's 17 games.
Yeah.
But everybody to be around 500. Everybody's got a chance. If you suck one year, there's evidence you can bounce back the next year. There's always a list of teams that make the playoff one year and they miss it, and another list of teams that miss it and make it. And the NFL is set for parity.
Yes.
College football is not. College football is set for non-parity. And that's how the schedule. We look at Texas' schedule this year, not to be mean.
Yeah.
You go to the college football playoff, and this is the schedule they hand you the next year?
Well, and for so long in the split conference era, you had a set number of like 7 teams that you played every single year, rotated through another team or two, depending on what conference you're in, and then you had your non-conference games. Now it's wide open.
It's such a behemoth, right?
And the example that he used, and one I used this morning, Missouri's schedule. They got Alabama, but that's it. They've got a cake of a schedule. For a team that finished in the top 10 last year, won the Cotton Bowl, they've got a much easier path to 10 wins and maybe the college football playoff than what Georgia or Texas or anybody else that finished around them in the top 10 did.
5-7 South Carolina's got a tougher conference schedule.
Yes.
Than Missouri. And Texas, to be quite honest.
And it's not just within your own conference. And look, we schedule these non-conference games 12 years out. Where you do the math, you're like, the guys playing in this game are in kindergarten right now. What are we doing?
Yes.
Where it's like, okay, sure, keep your non-conference rival like South Carolina does with Clemson, but I'd love to see South Carolina take on, let's say they finish 7th in the SEC, play the 7th team from the ACC, play the 7th team from the Big 12, Big 10, whatever it may be. Create some balance and intriguing matchups in these non-conference games. I don't need to see Ole Miss play Furman, and then Georgia Southern, and then Middle Tennessee State. Like, no, I'd love to see Ole Miss play, I don't know, Indiana or, Oklahoma State or comparable teams to where they're at. Yeah,
I mean, there has to be a rhyme and reason to how these schedules are made up. They just do. At least in the conference. At least in the I like what you said. Maybe you take, because everybody wants a couple of cupcakes. I get it. But maybe when you play the one non-cupcake in your non-conference, have it be like that. Okay, you finished number 3 in the SEC. Okay, how about you'll play the number 3 team in the Big 12? Whatever the case, just make it fair and equitable and even. What's Trending at 2 is sponsored by Gamecock Traditions and Traditions Fine Jewelry. We'll get back in here. Mario Cristobal next on The Game. We are rolling what's trending at 2 on a Football Friday here on the Game Halftime Show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head, thanks for hanging out with us. Whether you're in Columbia, Florence, Myrtle Beach, thank you very much. Or on the Game TV, our YouTube channel, or if you're streaming us, whether you're getting us from the, from your iPhone store, your Google store, wherever you're getting us from, thank you very much for listening on all these different platforms as we roll the halftime show in the game. All right. So, Mario Cristobal, Miami, this is the funniest thing. When you get the right quarterback, man, does everything look better. College, pros, the Houston Texans were a punchline. So what happened, Tyler?
Well, a lot of things happened, but C.J. Stroud was a big part of that.
That changed a lot. I mean, they got some pieces. Will Anderson's a nice pass rusher. They had some other things that they've done because they've accumulated $5 billion draft picks from the Deshaun Watson trade. But the number one thing that brought it all together was they got a quarterback.
Yep.
This happens. The Bengals made it to a Super Bowl. The Bengals, because they got the quarterback right. By accident, probably. Probably wanted to draft a punter. And everybody said, no, we got to take Burrow. You're seeing that at the University of Miami. First couple years, Tyler, they ran an offense that didn't fit Tyler Van Dyke's skill set. And they kept running that offense. And Tyler Van Dyke just couldn't run the offenses they were running at Miami. So, see you bye. He was truly a quarterback that could run a certain system.
Yeah.
Now you bring in Cam Ward, who is just a really good quarterback. You saw what he did at Incarnate Word. You saw what he did at Washington State. Dude can sling it. I thought he was going to end up at Florida State myself. I thought that would have been perfect. He could have jumped right in there for Jordan Travis. What kind of a difference is Florida State's season if they have Cam Ward?
They're probably undefeated right now.
Exactly. What's Miami right now?
Undefeated.
Yeah. All of a sudden, all that talent Mario Cristobal brought to Coral Gables that have been massively underachieving the first couple of years, looking pretty good right now, aren't they?
Funny how that works.
It's weird. Here's Mario Cristobal, the head coach of Miami, discussing Cam Ward's impact on the Hurricane program.
Well, it starts with him. I mean, he's exactly what you want in a quarterback, in a teammate, in a colleague, and a business partner. He's just a very driven, motivated guy that is all about preparation and winning. And when I say winning, he doesn't care much about personal accolades. He wants to perform to the best of his abilities to help the team win and help guys get better. So he's got a great supporting cast. The offensive line's done a good job. The defense has been outstanding. The receivers, tight ends, running backs have all stepped up, and he's been the alpha leader of the team. So it's worked out really well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you want from a quarterback. Remember, Cam Ward's, 23?
Something like that.
Something like that. Because he was Incarnate Word for 2 years, roughly?
I believe so.
Couple years at Washington State. He probably has a COVID year thrown in there somewhere. So he's about 23 years old, 22, 23, whatever. He's a grown-up when it comes to all this in college football. He prepares, he watches film, he knows what's up. Not many things at this point are going to surprise him when he's on the football field, and you've got a real quarterback now at Miami, and you see the difference in that football program. And, moving forward for them, I looked at this earlier today. I want to get it back up here, their schedule.
It's pretty doable.
Yeah, I mean, some of the games you thought, like, for example, you thought, that Florida State game. Well, not so much anymore.
They got to go to Louisville in a couple weeks. Louisville's still ranked right now.
Mm-hmm.
That's seemingly the toughest matchup left. It's a very manageable schedule. My thing is, can Mario Cristobal avoid doing the thing that a Mario Cristobal coach team always does?
What is that, Tyler?
That is tripping up on a team you have no business losing to.
Yes. Did it at Oregon all the time.
Did it last year, the Georgia Tech game, which, again, they had in hand and decided instead of kneeling on it, we're going to run it, and Haynes King leads Tech down the field, and we've been laughing at them ever since.
Yes.
But it's a thing. Like a couple years ago, Middle Tennessee State, when he was at Oregon, Stanford, Cal, like these teams, they had no business losing to good double-digit win teams at Oregon would just trip up on somebody random in the middle of the season.
And it was always that Pac-12 after dark game, right? 3 o'clock in the morning,
weird
man.
Game. The other guy would throw for 700 yards. There'd be 6 turnovers.
Happen all the time to Mario
But it's
Cristobal.
something that follows him. He does this every year.
So we're sitting here looking at the schedule, and I'm with you. I mean, Virginia Tech isn't what a lot of people thought they would be. That game is in Coral Gables. You go to Cal. Again, a game you should win. You go to Louisville, and Louisville's ranked. On paper, you're better than Louisville. Then you get Florida State at home. Do we even need to talk about that?
No.
You get Duke, I believe undefeated Duke right now.
Yes.
But that game, again, is at Miami. You travel to Georgia Tech. Remember, like you said last year, you screwed that one up. Georgia Tech's better now than they were last year. We'll see. You get Wake at home. Syracuse is an interesting team. Yeah, they're better than they've been, but they still shouldn't be able to beat you. But if you go by the Mario Cristobal effect, there's a really good chance Miami is going to lose one of these games that they should not lose. And your first thought is, well, okay, well, maybe Virginia Tech, because they were, everybody thought they were a sneaky dark horse in the ACC. Nah, it won't be Virginia. That's too obvious.
Yeah, no.
You know what it would be? At Cal. Cal. What time does that start? Do they have anything yet? 10:30 p.m. It's at Cal. Pac-12 after dark,
seems
baby.
Like a perfect one. Plus, I mean, you got to travel all the way across the country. Like, there's a lot of factors baked into that one that might be the one.
The only other one I could think of right now, because they're going to be, but again, they run a kooky offense. The game, even though the game is at Miami, Wake Forest Bachmeier could get hot, throw 7 touchdown passes. All of a sudden, Wake Forest is putting a 40-burger on Miami. They fumble 7 times, and all of a sudden, Wake Forest comes out of there with. It's going to be someone we don't see coming, because that's the way the Mario Cristobal effect always works.
What history tells
Am I right?
us. Yep.
Absolutely, no doubt. All right, today is September 27th, Tyler.
Greatest day in the history of the world.
Coming up next on the Halftime Show on a Football Friday, Terry Ford, Tyler Hett on the game. Greatest day in the history of the world on a football Friday? Terry Ford, Tyler Head. You know, we try to go old school in the first one all the time, Tyler. Try to dig up a little something.
How far back?
I could have gone 1894 to the Aqueduct Racetrack, opening its doors in New York.
Okay.
It was torn down in 55, reopened in 59. They still race there. I mean, it's not like a juicy one.
All right.
And then there was a Kentucky Derby deal with Armed, then the world's leading money-winning thoroughbred. That's 1946. 1950, Ezra Charles won a 15-round decision over Joe Louis at Yankee Stadium to retain the heavyweight title. That was near the end of Joe Louis's career. He lost later to Rocky Marciano. Then he became a professional wrestler at some time. He tried professional golf. The sad thing with Joe Louis was he made $4.6 million. And that's through like the 40s, 50s, stuff like that, whatever, right?
Right.
He only actually ever got $800,000 of it. He was basically swindled at every turn.
Mm-hmm.
And he was very generous with his money, and he invested in some bad businesses. And basically, he didn't have a whole lot left. And it's a shame that the guy made so much money, but because of all these circumstances, didn't have much to show for it financially. It's a shame. The guy was arguably the greatest heavyweight ever, one of the 3 or 5. All right, so to more current things in the greatest day in the history of the world. I almost saw this. Even bringing up New England beating Atlanta in a football game is painful to you, isn't it? In any way, shape, or form?
I'm numb. Go ahead. I don't care.
This day in 2009, the Patriots beat the Falcons. 16th straight regular season win over the NFC.
I'm struggling to think of the last time the Falcons actually beat the Patriots.
Yeah, because that one gave the Patriots a streak of 16 consecutive regular season victories over the other conference. That was the longest streak ever since 1970.
If I recall, unless it was early on in his tenure, I can't think of a Brady-led Patriots team that the Falcons beat. They played on Thursday night a couple years ago, and the Patriots blanked them, I think, 25-0.
So they haven't beaten them in your lifetime that you can think of.
I'm going to have to double-check on this because I do not remember them beating them.
Here's another NFL one real quick. This day in 2009. With rookie quarterback Matthew Stafford leading the way, the Detroit Lions end a 19-game losing streak, beating the Washington, at the time, Redskins 19-14. Lions hadn't won since December of 2007. Second longest losing streak in NFL history.
Was Campbell on the Matt Stafford team?
I believe yes.
Because I know he's on the losing team.
He was on the no, I don't know if he was on the 2009 team, but yeah, he was on the losing streak team.
Him and Langston losing every game.
Poor Langston. Played for the Bengals. Played for the Lions. That man suffered. Man.
And now both teams are, well, the Bengals are off to a rough start, but he's probably looking at it like, the hell, guys? Why couldn't you be this good when I was
in
there?
The last 5 years, he's seen his Bengals go to the Super Bowl and the Lions go to the NFC Championship game. And he's like, what's up with this?
10 years too early.
On this day in 2003, B.J. Simons of Texas Tech throws for 661 yards. A school and Big 12 record, also 6 touchdowns. Red Raiders beat Mississippi 49-45. This is interesting. You know, the U.S. won the gold medal in baseball on this day in 2000.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was in Sydney. You know who managed that team?
2000. I do not.
Tommy Lasorda.
How about that?
Mm-hmm. There you go.
By the way, I've answered my question.
Uh-huh.
The Falcons have beaten the Patriots once in my lifetime, November 8th, 1998. They've played 6 times since then, and the Patriots won all of them.
There you go. I blame you for this.
I've never seen, or cognitively remember at least, the Falcons beat the Patriots.
This is your fault.
I guess so.
See, look what you've done. It's a Tyler Head jinx on the Falcons.
It feels like it.
This day in 1998, Mark McGwire hit 2 home runs to reach the 70 mark in the Cardinals' season finale against Montreal. Again, the 70th final home run was off of Carl Pavano, and that was the record at the time, breaking the long-standing mark by Roger Maris easily. And in 1992, this Formula One driver set a single-season record for victories.
92.
Leading from start to finish.
He
was the world champion, by the way, at the time.
It's either Schumacher or Senna. I can't remember what year Senna died.
Nigel Mansell.
Oh, okay.
There you go. Nigel, I know you know your Nigel Mansell. You're just getting your years.
Well, that was also 4 years before I was born.
You know, excuses.
I guess so.
Excuses from you. I get excuses. All right, that's the greatest day in the history of the world here on the Halftime Show. It's a Football Friday, so let's spin back to it, Tyler. Obviously, a big game with Alabama, Georgia. Let's hear from both head coaches. First of all, here is Kalen DeBoer on the key factors in Saturday's game.
Well, I think you probably see it, and so you added a little bit to the end of the question, but I think the turnovers and just how well they've taken care of the football and knowing how big of a deal that is in field position each and every game, but especially a game like this. And then I just think that, the offense is getting into a rhythm, and the defense is doing a good job of trying to keep them out of it. You got some strong defenses here. We know that they haven't allowed a touchdown, through their season here, and that's impressive. You're going to have to put plays on top of each other, but a lot of it to me is just starts out with taking care of the football.
All right, so Georgia's defense, not giving up a touchdown all year like Caleb DeBoer just brought up. I mean, honestly, not to be mean, humiliated Clemson's offense in that opener. Clemson could do nothing on offense.
Say the least.
Now, Clemson has gone on to put up big numbers in their next two games against NC State and Appalachian State. Now, is that because Clemson's offense all of a sudden kicked it into gear? Or is that because App State and NC State's defenses are just... We don't know. But obviously, Alabama will get the toughest defense they faced all year on the field in Tuscaloosa Saturday.
Yep.
Here's Kirby Smart. And, Kirby obviously was at Bama a long time with Nick. And here's Kirby Smart talking about going back to Tuscaloosa.
Less now. I mean, it's just, you move on. I think last time we went, it was 4 or 5 years from the time we had lived there. And it's so weird when you play there because you're in and out. You're there and then you're gone. So it's just different, but you really focus on the players, what they have to do, what we have to do to execute, that it takes away from that thing. There's a lot of people that are still there in the organization that I'm close with and have a lot of respect for, but that's the case in a lot of these places in the SEC.
What do you think of that answer? I'll tell you what I thought of in a minute, but go ahead.
It's kind of the answer I expected. If you're trying to get him to go down some kind of path about the memories that he had at Tuscaloosa, he's not going to do that.
No. First of all, how long has he been back at Georgia?
Almost 10 years now.
It's been almost a decade.
And they've been there before.
Yeah.
They visited Alabama back in 2020.
Yeah,
it's not the first time he's ever been back to Tuscaloosa.
Yeah. Look, being a beat reporter and covering teams it's not an easy gig. It isn't. I could never do it. I just couldn't do it. It would drive me insane. But Kirby, thoughts on coming back to Bama? I mean, he's been back before since he's been at Georgia. He didn't go to Alabama. He went to Georgia. He was an assistant at Alabama for a long time with Nick. But that was a job. Not to be mean. It was a job.
Yeah.
That's what it was. That's why that answer doesn't surprise me. And any kind of warm fuzzies he had, he wiped out the first trip.
Do you think at any point between when the game starts and the game ends that Kirby's going to have any cognitive thought about, I'm in Tuscaloosa and Bryant-Denny Stadium right now?
Kirby won't know where he's at for 4 hours. It's all about ball, right? It's all about ball for 4 hours.
Yeah.
It's nothing to do with...
He's not looking, I sat up there that one game talking to a recruit, and no, he's going to be locked in.
No. It's like, man, I tell you what, I love those nachos.
It's like, oh, man.
Have me some of those nachos.
I remember taking a picture in front of this wall after we beat LSU back in 2009.
No. No.
I think they lost to LSU. No, undefeated in 2009.
Yeah, so again, not surprised by the answer. The question is kind of interesting, why that question would even come up. Anyway, I think Georgia wins. I think it's close. I think Georgia wins. That defense is real. It always is. Jalen Milroe in Alabama, they depend on big plays. They're not very efficient. They're not great. Their success rate is not fantastic. Georgia's good at stopping you from making big plays.
And that's the dynamic of this game that I'm interested to see. Ryan Williams has been phenomenal so far this season. Big play threat down the field, 3 of his 4 touchdowns on throws greater than 20 yards. We know Milroe's not really good in the mid-range stuff. He's good at throwing deep balls, and Ryan Williams is good at catching them and turning into touchdowns. Georgia has a very good set of DBs when it comes to covering those kind of things, especially their safety. So can they neutralize the threat that Ryan Williams is going to be a big key tomorrow.
If you force Alabama to drive the ball down the field on you, that's where they have trouble. They want to beat you with explosives. So if Georgia can stop explosives and say, okay, Alabama, take 12 plays and go score a touchdown. That's not Alabama's wheelhouse. So it's going to be very interesting. And I think the Georgia offense, they've just got to get the ball down the field a little bit. And I know Alabama's defense is good, but Georgia's just got to start kind of lengthening the field a little bit in the passing game. They're doing a lot of little quick stuff. They got to get it down the field a bit to start loosening up defenses. But look, I just think Georgia's better. I just do. And I think Kirby's going to look across sideline and go, no offense, I know you're a really good coach, Kalen DeBoer. You ain't Nick.
For the first time in the last 7 matchups, Georgia has the coaching advantage.
Yes, absolutely. Firehouse Sub Text the Hour coming up next, 803-404-6100. I know it's a football Friday, but we got to get to a baseball story. A sad baseball story. A really sad baseball story. That's coming up next. It's a halftime show. Terry Ford, Tyler Head. 3 o'clock, the postgame show live at Party Golf in West Columbia. It's the World Championship Long Drive Contest. Elijah Campbell's there. He'll be joined with Jack Veltri. They'll do the postgame show. Jay's out. That's coming up at 3 here on The Game. All right, we'll get to our Firehouse sub text the hour here in just a second. 803-404-6100 on a Football Friday. First of all, though, we're going to move over to baseball real quick. Cut 5, Tyler. The A's played their last game in Oakland yesterday. They got a W over Texas. Here is sound from the final game at the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum.
Here's the 1-2. Jankowski to Schumann. And the ground ball will end things. A 3-2 win for the Oakland Athletics. One more win for the Oakland fans.
And, again, who pays for a team leaving? The fans. The Oakland A's will leave. Look, the Oakland Alameda County Coliseum's a dump. No one's arguing it's not a dump. It's awful. It's terrible. You flush a toilet in one area and sewage pops up in another. It's awful.
No, you flush toilet in one area and then a drink gets dispensed next door in the concession stand.
It's awful. Oh, my beer's dark. I didn't get a dark beer. It's awful. No one's saying they don't need a new ballpark. They do. They need a new stadium for football, for baseball. They just need a new ballpark and stadium. I get the state of California does not give out, state money for stadiums and ballparks. That's what California does. But I'm sorry. A bazillionaire, one of the richest men in baseball, by the way. The Fisher family, the Gap and all that stuff. Yeah. They're loaded.
I'm familiar.
The powers that be in the city of Oakland all should have got together to get this done. They're both at fault. And who pays the freight? The fans.
That's right.
Just like the ownership for the Raiders and, once again, the politicians in Oakland. Oakland has lost 3 teams in the last 5 years. The Warriors now play in San Francisco. The Raiders are in Vegas, and the A's most likely will end up in Vegas. And yes, the owner is not the best human being in the world, and he doesn't care. But the politicians in that city also get blamed for this too. It takes 2 to tango.
Sure.
And at the end of the day, when you have owners in professional sports who only care about profit, they should not be owners in professional sports. If you're in professional sports and make a profit, like on a year in, year out basis, you're in the wrong business. If you want to buy it to sell it later and make a gigantic profit, go do it. But you can't operate a sports franchise like you operate your dry cleaner.
You can't make a profit and win.
No, you can't. So if you don't want to win, you don't want to do what needs to be done to win financially, don't buy a team. And you know what? You can't. If you are a league and you see that's what's going on with an owner, there should be rules and regulations and processes in place. If you don't get your head out of your hind parts and start caring about putting a product on the field, you are going to lose that team. That's what needs to happen. And look, the attendance stinks in Oakland, but do you blame them?
No. Well, and here's the thing. When they've been called upon, they did the reverse thing where they sold out just a random game last year, and obviously they packed the place out.
Yep.
The fans aren't the problem. The fans support the team, but when you don't give people a good product to watch, people are going to stop coming.
Exactly. So what's happening in Oakland is just awful. Just awful.
And again, it's not just the A's leaving. They're the last professional sports team they had.
Yeah.
And, I saw videos. There were people that were there 2 hours after the game having to be told by security and police to leave because they were just trying to take in the last remnants of professional sports they have.
Mm-hmm. One last thing, and then we'll move on to a couple other things. But what these soulless billionaires don't understand is the fabric of sports runs through the fans. And the minute you give the middle finger to fans, you should lose your team. You absolutely should lose your team. But they don't do it. That's the problem, too. You let these guys stay in baseball, and they're everywhere. They're not just in Oakland. They're in other pockets. They're in Pittsburgh. The guy in Pittsburgh's got a ton of dough. He won't spend but so much on the Pirates. Mm-hmm. It's sad. By the way, Paul Skeens will be pitching in another uniform in 3 years. All right, real quick, I'll give away a family 4-pack of Carowinds tickets here. Carowinds is really cool at Carowinds. Now, they're offering 3 incredible seasonal events this fall. The all-new Oktoberfest, All new tricks and treats and the return of SC Carowinds. And for the first time, all the events this fall are included with park admission. That's very cool. So a family 4-pack to Carowinds right now, 803-404-6100. Again, 803-404-6100. Caller number 4 wins. Carowinds, very cool place. Your chance to go for nothing. Give us a call right now at 803-404-6100. All right, Firehouse Sub text of the hour. What do you got there real quick, Tyler Head, on the old Firehouse Sub text line before we get out of here?
We're talking about bad owners. Trey says, don't forget about Tepper.
Oh, we can't forget about Tepper. Absolutely not. And that's in the NFL. And look, I get it. He's one of the richest dudes in the league. He's a terrible owner. He's an awful owner. And ownership in all these professional sports, when you get a guy in there who's not a good owner, you got to do something about it at some point. The only reason, Donald Sterling got ran out of the NBA was because he got caught on tape saying racist stuff. I mean, for years, this was a bad human being that was a slumlord and didn't do a great job with the Clippers consistently. You've got bad owners all over professional sports, but they don't run them out. Daniel Snyder was an embarrassment. But the NFL didn't do anything about him until they had to. And really, it took a lot. It took a lot. So, again, the billionaires go by different rules with other billionaires, and that's what's sad. That is what's sad. Good text. You're exactly right. Tepper's terrible. 803-404-6100, our Firehouse Sub text line. We always appreciate it. Thank you very much for your text. Coming up, live from Park T Golf in West Columbia, it's the World Championship of Long Driving, Long Drive World Championship. Elijah Campbell is there. Jack Veltri will be hanging out with him today. Jay, he has the day off. He'll be back on Monday. Appreciate you hanging in with us. It's been a day. Thank you very much for hanging in with us. We appreciate it. Tyler, fine work today, my friend. Nice job. Ed Bird's here to run the controls for the postgame show and for the Love Chevy High School football scoreboard. That's at 7 as well. We are done. Enjoy your weekend. We will yap with you again on Monday here on the Halftime Show on the Game.